podcast with me, your host, Krystal, also known by my artist name, the most famous woman in the world. So today I want to talk about something that is very personal for me and which I hope really helps all of us, which is how to overcome having a victim's mentality, or how to stop playing the role of the victim in your life. So this hits really close to home for me because I would say for the majority of my adult life, I definitely had a victim's mentality without knowing it. And I did not realize that I subconsciously played the victim. I did not know that until I was 35 years old plus. And that doesn't mean maybe what you would envision it to mean. It doesn't mean I was, so, when we think of someone who has a victim's mentality, we kind of get this picture of maybe someone who's always asking for a handout, or someone who's always whining and complaining, or something like that, right? Well, that wasn't me on the outside at all. Me on the outside, to every person around me, you would have seen an extremely dedicated, extremely hardworking, extremely independent to a fault, actually, just very extremely career-oriented young woman. That's what you would have seen on the outside. I was not someone who would ask for help. I don't like asking for help. Even when I'm literally almost dying, I will not ask for help. I am not someone who would have outwardly shown really any signs of that. And which is interesting in its own way, right? Because it's kind of like a lot of people, a lot of us, we will present to the outside world the exact opposite of what we really are as a defense mechanism. So the victim's mentality is very insidious, and it's very subtle, and it can be as small of a thought as, I'll give you some examples. Nothing ever works out for me in relationships. Relationships never work out for me. That was and is one that I still struggle with. So I'm sure many of you can relate. So I am naming victim mentality thoughts that I've had or that I've seen other people have, because at our fundamental core, most of us are very extremely similar. So I know if I've thought these thoughts and other people I know who have this problem think it, then I know you guys out there may be thinking these things too. So one of my biggest ones, and this comes from childhood attachment trauma and not being raised in a stable 2-person home and having extremely rocky personal relationships and all this stuff. So one that I struggle with is telling myself relationships don't work out for me. Relationships just aren't for me. And when I'm really in a bad, pissy mood and I get down on myself, I can veer into letting the brain worm of, well, men just don't like me. Men want to, and excuse my language, but I'm just going to be myself right now. I will tell myself, well, men want to fuck me, but they don't want to actually be with me as a human being, which is actually even worse in a way, right? And so I will, in my worst, darkest moments, less and less now, more and more, because I'm striving more than I ever have to become the person I've always wanted to be. But yeah, that thought will come in, which is, well, sure, they want to sleep with me, but they don't accept me as a human being. They don't want to do life with me. They don't like me as a person. They don't like my personality. They don't, you know what I mean? Which then gets me even more depressed, because I'm like, wow, they're, sure, people might want me physically, but they're rejecting my soul. Like, they're rejecting me as a soul, which is like worse, right? Like, so I'll go into these vicious cycles of, I'm going to be really real, of bouts of depression that are so severe that throughout my life I've had to get help for that, So that whole thing is a prime example of a victim's mentality. And these things usually, they're not going to, you're not going to have these types of thoughts all day, every day, 24 hours a day, constantly, all the time. Of course not. When I'm going about my day, I'm not thinking of stuff like that. These types of thoughts might creep up a few times a month. These thoughts might creep up, depending on where you are in your mental health journey, in your spiritual journey, in your life journey. They might be every day. I hope they're not every day, but they could be daily. They could be constant. They could be only a few times a year, or maybe they're, it just depends on where you're at, right? But for me, they do crop up when things in my environment trigger me into my old patterns of thinking. And my old patterns of thinking were very much, I'm the victim. And that, of course, those types of thoughts come down to your childhood and your upbringing and the amount of love and care and support and stability that you received throughout your life. And also, the things that you do on a daily basis to help improve and maintain and sustain your mental and emotional health, which can include your nutrition. It can include how much sunlight you're getting, how much exercise you're getting, how much water you're getting. If you're abusing drugs and alcohol, that can make your whole emotional life be a roller coaster. So I'm not going to go into all of that. I'm just going to give my tips. And actually, let me back up just for a second. Let me just give a couple more examples of thoughts that could be a victim's mentality and we might not know it, which is, okay, here's a few that I've heard or that I've thought. Well, I've always thought I could be a writer, but nobody would ever buy my books. Who would ever buy my books? Nobody's going to actually buy them. Okay. Another one is, I always wanted to be a guitar player, but I'm just not musically talented. I'm not musically talented. I didn't grow up in a musical family, and wow, I love guitar players. I've always wanted to be a guitar player, but I'm talentless. I have no talent. Okay. Those are some that I've heard. Of course, I'm sure you can probably think of more. But for me, another one that comes up is I will sometimes see people with a more prominent, more successful music career, and I will sometimes think things like, well, her parents were rich and that's why she's successful, is because she grew up with a silver spoon. So of course, mommy and daddy's money is going to pay for YouTube ads, and mommy's and daddy's money is going to pay for the tour bus and for merchandise and for hiring the band and for this and for that. Of course, if I was built, if I had a silver spoon, where would I be? If mommy and daddy gave me $2 million, where do you think my musical career would be? Of course she's rich and famous. Her dad gave her $2 million to start her career. Okay, I'm actually talking about a particular singer out there in the world, but I won't mention who it is. So I've definitely thought that. Or I've thought things like, well, of course he's successful. His dad is one of the most famous actors in the world. Of course he's going to be successful too. Okay, another one that I feel women, I mean, maybe men too, I can't really speak for men, but I can definitely speak for myself and probably for many women that I've come in, that I've met over my life, which is sometimes we will have a subconscious desire for a man to rescue us. And that plays into the archetype of the damsel in distress and the whole Rapunzel in the castle thing and the whole crap that we've been fed since we were little kids. So I definitely remember a time in my early 20s-ish where, for whatever strange odd reason, maybe it might be partially evolution, it might be, there's a lot to it, but I was definitely always looking toward a man to be the cornerstone of my financial stability and to be the cornerstone of my financial house and to lead that and be that. So I was looking for that husband figure before, and I was placing more importance on that during a certain period of my life than I was placing on my own self being my own cornerstone of my financial stability, which is what I should have been doing. But I was looking toward a man to do that for me. And then when those ideas did not materialize, then the victim mentality would come again, which would be the whole tirade of I'm not good enough, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not sexy enough, I'm not whatever. And continuing to look for, here's another one. There was a time in my life where I was looking for a music label to come rescue my music career. And I was always looking for a starting gun, a starting point, like the point where I made it, where someone comes out of nowhere and discovers me and I make it and I have my big break and then I'm famous and then I'm successful and, the overnight success story. And yes, that does happen to some people, but the vast majority of people, that's not how it works. But because I was waiting for that and looking for that for so many years, and I was so behind on building my own independent, that's one of my cameras powering down. I was so focused on looking for someone to rescue my musical career. Again, victim's mentality, the victim, nobody wants to work with me. Labels aren't paying attention to me. I'm not good enough. All of that stuff, all of that time and energy wasted into looking for someone to give me a budget, to give me money, to assign me, to, believe in me, all of that stuff, to promote me, to help me, to manage me, all of that stuff, all of that time I could have been doing all of that stuff myself, slowly but surely, and focusing on building an independent audience over decades. And that was literally decades wasted on a victim's mentality of waiting for someone to come rescue me, waiting for a music label to come rescue me, a manager to come rescue me, a man to come rescue me, all of that stuff. So, and meanwhile, as just an aside to reiterate what I was saying earlier, on the outside, I did not talk about this with people. I did not show this to people. I was barely conscious of this myself. In fact, I wasn't conscious of it at all until I was easily 34, 35 years old. I didn't even realize that I was looking for someone to rescue me or looking for organizations to rescue me in so many different ways. I didn't even realize it. And honestly, I don't quite remember the epiphany moment I had when I realized I had a victim mentality, but I definitely remember it was a couple years ago, and I definitely remember, I don't remember what triggered it, but I remember the day I realized that I was hiding and, like hoarding this victim's mentality. And, that was something that no one in my life would have known. And if anybody did know that about me, it might have been one or two of my closest friends possibly might have heard something come out of my mouth along those lines. But for the vast majority of humans and my public life and everything, I was that strong go-getter, always working hard, always on a new project, always standing up for herself, working, all that stuff. But meanwhile, on the inside, I was this little victim going home, on work, during the day, putting on this smile and being the blonde, bubbly girl and this, perfect example of what society, I guess, wants. A student, multiple degrees, and then going home, and I am not even kidding you. There was a good 10 plus years of my life where I would go home and cry myself to sleep. I'm talking 3 to 4 to 7 nights a week for probably more than a decade. It was bad. It was rough. And I would not wish that on anyone. It was horrible. And thank God I'm finally getting out of that phase, which I also attribute to potentially just hormone stabilizing after adolescence. But that's a whole other story for a whole other day. But so how do we overcome our victim's mentality? So I don't like to do lists that go on and on. I just like to give you guys like two or three things that help me and keep it moving. So the first thing is this. You have to admit to yourself that you have been playing the victim. First and foremost, that was so hard for me. So hard. Once I realized that I was basically a bullshitter. I was putting on a show for everybody in my life, including me, of this super strong person, this amazing person, when really I was just waiting for whoever invisible person to come rescue me. So for me to finally see the truth, the reality, the hypocrisy, the weakness, to admit that you have a weakness can be very hard. But that's the very first step, right? In AA, we're taught that the first thing you need to do on the road to recovery is to admit that you have a problem, is to admit that you are an alcoholic, to admit that you have an addiction. Because if you don't admit that you have a problem or admit your weakness, you can't accept that. You can't see it for what it is. You might not even know it exists. I mean, if someone is an addict, but they don't believe they're an addict, then they're definitely not going to stop abusing whatever drug they're abusing because they don't think there's anything wrong. So it's a great thing to realize that you're a human being. That's okay. We all have weaknesses. There's not one human being on the earth that is just a 10 across the board in all the different categories of a human being. It doesn't exist. So if you are someone who finds yourself going into these little rabbit holes of I'm not good enough, I suck, I'm not smart, no one loves me, I'm dumb, nothing I do ever succeeds, I'm a fucking loser. Like, trust me, I know where this rabbit hole goes because I've been there so too many times to admit in my life. Going down the rabbit hole, something goes bad, you don't get a job, or you lose a job, or an unexpected bill comes up that you can't pay, or someone breaks up with you, or you wind yourself up in jail somehow, or you lose your car, or you lose your house. A traumatic event happens, and the rabbit hole can happen very quickly. And the rabbit hole usually starts with, everything bad always happens to me. Why can't anything good happen to me? I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. Nothing in my life is good. Life isn't worth it. My future, I don't have a future. I'm hopeless. There's no point in living. No one loves me. I'm ugly. I'm fat. I'm never going to be in shape. I'm a fat loser. I am too old. I have too many wrinkles. My tits aren't big enough. My butt isn't big enough. I have cellulite, and so no one's going to love me. Nobody would look at me. Ew, I'm gross. I'm disgusting. I've literally been down a rabbit hole where I would tell myself that I'm fucking disgusting and grotesque, and that's why no one that's why I'm not married, is because I'm a fucking goblin. Okay? Like, I have to laugh a little bit because it's so ridiculous now that I'm a little older and a little wiser and a lot more healthy, right? Like, I literally used to tell myself I'm a fucking goblin. Like, so you can just, I hope that you resonate with this and realize how ridiculous some of these things can get. Okay? So first thing, admit that you have this problem. Okay? Step number 2, what helped me so much is to realize that as an adult, we are responsible for ourselves once we turn 18. Whether we like it or not, whether our parents gave us a good foundation or not, whether we had all of the resources and support and love and stability that we deserved and needed or not. The truth is, once we cross the line of being 18, we are responsible for ourselves. No one else is going to be responsible for your health, your happiness, your success levels, your income levels, your daily schedule, your all of that. No one is responsible for that for anyone else. The only people that are responsible for that are parents with their children. And yes, there's a lot of parents who screw that up and don't actually do everything they're supposed to do. But once we're 18, no one is going to rescue anyone. You might get lucky and have help along the way, and thank God, and it's a blessing when people actually do help. And I've definitely had people come into my life and pick my sorry ass up off the ground when I needed it. But they didn't have to. And I shouldn't have been looking for that. I shouldn't have been, those times that I was looking for certain help, I really shouldn't have been looking for that. I should have been realizing that as an adult, I am 100% responsible for the outcomes in my life. And no one is going to come rescue you. And that's not a bad thing. I mean, think about it. It's not that, it's not that, oh, poor me, the world is so harsh and cruel and the universe is so against me that blah, 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 nobody's going to come help me, poor me. That's the victim mentality talking. A way around this is to realize how valuable becoming responsible and empowered for your own well-being is. When you can actually stand within your own power as an adult human on your own 2 feet and make responsible choices for yourself and for your future. And when you can start seeing the consequences of your present actions and you can see that ripple effect and you can start controlling the outcome of your future because you're making better choices in the present, because you're becoming more responsible and conscious and becoming more of an adult. It is so awesome. It's so awesome. It's so awesome to have control. And when you have control over your life, and I'm not saying, okay, you're not going to have control over every tiny little thing. But when I'm saying for the vast majority of your day, when you finally take back that control that you've been trying to just give away to some kind of invisible entity that doesn't really even exist, like just some random person that you're hoping is going to come save you or whatever thing is you're looking for. When you take that back, take that control back and work and strive to be responsible, it is the best feeling ever when you start seeing the results of your responsibility, when you start seeing the outcomes and things start working out for you. And when you start having a better and more healthy and more realistic outlook on life, and a more mature outlook on life, which is, it's not that other people hate you. It's not that other people are trying to attack you or bring you down or whatever. It's that they're not even thinking about you because they're worried about their own stuff. And I talked a little bit about this in a different way yesterday, but people are worried about their own adulting. They have bills, they have work, they have their own thing that they have going on. So it's sometimes not that they don't want to help you. It's sometimes not that your friends and family and romantic others and all that, it's not maybe that they don't want to help you or that they hate you and they don't love you and that's why they're not helping you. It's that they're just caught up in their own crap, and they're probably expecting you as an adult to be able to help yourself and to be responsible and to make those tough decisions and to make those sacrifices if you need to. You know, I mean, for example, I'll give you a great example. So right now I made some I'll say missteps, or I made some choices that might not have been the best choices recently, but that's okay because no one's perfect. We're all going to make choices which in hindsight you go, oh, well, I should have done something different, right? But hey, that's okay. And so now I am working harder and longer hours than I've worked in so long. Like I am working my little butt off right now. Like, whoo, I am probably going to get about, oh Lord, I don't even want to think about, oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm going to get like maybe 4 hours of sleep tonight. But the reason why I'm okay with that right now is because I am taking responsibility for the choices I made, which led up to me having to make up a lot of work that I kind of shirked in a short period of time. So I'm basically making up for about 2 months of semi slacking off ish. Actually, you know what? Longer than that. I'm making all of those hours up right now. So I'm like double, triple timing it right now. Okay. But I'm not going to be mad. I'm not crying about it. I'm not complaining about it. I'm not going, oh my God, I can't believe it. I have to work 16-hour days and it's going to be so hard and I'm not going to have a day off for 2 months and poor me and the universe hates me and nobody loves me. And no, I'm an adult. I'm a grown woman. I did this. I made the choices that I made, and I have to reap the consequences of that. And if I want to be rescued, I have to rescue me. And that's my third tip, which is, actually, I don't remember if it was 2 or 3 tips already, but taking responsibility was the other one. Okay, so let's go back. 1, admit you have a problem. Admit that you have tendencies to have a victim mentality, to feel victimized. Number 2, take responsibility. Take back responsibility and realize that other people are adulting. And my last one is just going to be that you have to rescue you. And isn't that great? Because you get to rescue you. It's cool when you actually start doing it and you actually start helping yourself and you feel that love for yourself and it starts working and you really do become your own rescuer and you see little by little how effective you are and how you can affect change in your life. How when you try, you really can help yourself. You really can rescue yourself. You really can get yourself into better circumstances. You can upgrade your life. You can do all of those things. When you start making little strides and seeing real improvement on the outside of your life, it feels so good. It feels so good to know that no one has control over you in that way, that you have the ability. You can do it. You actually can do it. If you don't like the apartment that you're living in and it depresses you and it's in a shit neighborhood and there's violence outside of your apartment and you're afraid all the time to park your car because somebody's going to break into it and you're afraid to walk from your car to your apartment because somebody might freaking rape and kill you and you don't want to live in that apartment anymore, stop with the victim mentality. Don't just go into the apartment and just be depressed and lay on the bed and lay on the couch and just think about how depressing your life is and how you effing hate your life. That's not the answer. I'm just trying to empower you to just make as many little strides and big strides, any strides that you can, to realize that you can make a plan to get out of that apartment and to get into a luxury apartment. Okay, so maybe you're not making enough money to afford a better apartment in a better neighborhood right now at this second. But guess what? Get a piece of paper and write on it, problem, I hate my apartment, solutions, and you list a bunch of solutions. That just brainstorm some solutions. Okay, what could I do to get a better apartment? And you start listing those things. And actually, you can use my problem solution worksheet, which is on millionairementormethod.com. It's free. It's under tools, free tools. So you can go there, millionairementormethod.com/free tools, or just click on the menu tab, free tools, and download it for free. You can mark it up on your computer or tablet or phone, or print it out like I do. I'm a big printer outer of things. I love printing. Printing is like my favorite thing. I don't care. I don't care if everybody wants to do everything in an app. I like printing. So problem solution, write some solutions. Okay, why can't you get a better apartment? Well, okay, I'm not making enough money. Okay, what's some things you can do to make more money? Start applying for different jobs. Get a second job. Well, I don't want to get a second job because it's going to be hard. I'm going to be tired. So what? Honestly, this is real talk. When I was struggling really desperately, when I was 18, 19, 20, young, early 20s, I was struggling so effing hard, yet I didn't want to work double shifts. Okay, and meanwhile, I was like 19 and 20. I could have done it. It's a 20-year-old's. I was extremely healthy. I'm still extremely healthy, thank God. At 20, I could have easily worked. Okay, maybe not easily, but I could have worked 16-hour days. I could have done double shifts a few times a week to help myself and my circumstances in many of those occasions, but I didn't. I would just wallow in self-pity and get depressed and cry by myself and sleep for 12 hours a day, wondering why my life wasn't improving, waiting for some man to rescue me, wondering why my parents weren't, why they didn't prepare me financially, and blaming them for not setting me up in, whatever, with a good financial life, I guess. But look, life can be hard. But that doesn't mean you just go, oh, life is hard. I'm just going to sit here and sleep and cry. No, get your ass up and get to work. If you need more money and if you are healthy enough to be able to pull double shifts if you need to go work Uber after your day job, to go do, whatever, babysitting, dog walking, whatever. There's so many jobs. The thing with, and this is I'm on a tirade now. I apologize, but I'll wrap it up, okay, quickly, as quick as I can. But the whole point is this. Myself included, when I was younger, I could name a handful of people I've met in my life and that I am thinking of right now, I'm not going to name names, who have no problem complaining and griping and complaining about their horrible life and their horrible financial situation. But they still have time to party. They still have time to go to a bar at night. They still have time to go on dates and spend money on a date. They still have enough money to drop $150 on a Friday night. They still have the time and the money somehow to be able to go party. And in my head, I'm like, how's that? And I get it. I was one of them. At a certain time, I was broke and hating my financial situation, looking for somebody to come rescue me. But I still had time to go party on the weekends. Twice, 2-3 times a week I would party. But somehow I would still complain about my financial situation. So, sometimes we have to really buckle down, and we have to really understand and take responsibility that, sometimes life is hard, man. Sometimes it's not going to be, oh, I just work 40 hours a week and everything's great. Sometimes you might have to work 80 hours. Sometimes you might have to work 100 hours. Sometimes you might not be able to go on a date for a year or 2 or 3. Sometimes you might not be able to go get laid for a year or 2. Yeah. Why? Because you have to make a decision. What's important to you at a certain point? What's important? And that comes down to a whole other thing, and I'm getting off on a whole tirade. But I really hope this helps you guys. We're not victims, we're survivors, we're thrivers. And remember, thank God, a lot of us live in America, and I know not all of my listeners live in America. Actually, I looked, and some of you are listening from Ireland, so I appreciate that. But thankfully, in our country, we still do have many job openings. And a lot of those job openings are unfilled because people don't want to work hard. People don't want the unglamorous job. And, we want to still have the victim mentality of, I'm not making enough money, and I don't have any money, and I don't have the lifestyle I want, and da-da-da-da-da, but we won't start at the bottom. So I encourage you all out there to stop being a victim today. Make it a choice that I am no longer a victim. I am not a victim. Who wants to be a victim anyways? When you really think about it, isn't it gross? I mean, isn't it icky? It's like, ew. Really think about that. Do you really want to be the type of person who has that mentality? Like, think about meeting someone now in your life and them being someone who has a victim's mentality, and they're always talking about it, and, nothing good ever happens to me. Nobody likes me. I'm ugly. I'm stupid. I can't do anything right. Oh, my life is horrible. Would you want to hang out with that person? I wouldn't. I'd be like, yo, you need to go see a doctor, like you need help and it's not me, bud. Or maybe nowadays I might try to help them, but only to a certain extent, right? So don't you be that person. I don't care what you look like. I don't care how much money you have. I don't care how tall you are, how short you are, how thin you are, how thick you are. I don't care any of that stuff. That type of mentality is ugly. It's not a good look for anyone. You know what is a good look? And you know what people can see and feel? Is someone who is mature, responsible, empowered, positive, optimistic, and resourceful. That's someone who I want to hang out with. Wouldn't you? Think about that. And wouldn't that person with that personality, that empowered, hardworking, strong, positive, change-making personality, isn't that a beautiful look no matter which size you are? Isn't that a gorgeous person no matter how old or young they are? You think that people can't see that? You think that people don't know? Like, people see these things when we're around each other. It's more than just how you look, right? Like, I say this all the time, that I could meet the most beautiful man in the world, but with a certain personality, he could go from hero to zero in about 0.001 seconds. If he has a certain type of negative, toxic, gross personality, he could go from God's gift to women to don't even come within my vicinity in seconds. So don't have this victim's mentality because it's ugly. It really is. And it drains your energy. It's a vicious cycle. It doesn't help you get out of the circumstances. And here's another thing. And you know what? I've now gone on for 45 minutes and I really, you know what? Forget it. I'm going to stop saying I'm going to wrap it up because you know what? I know me. I should know me well enough to know by now that I just can go and go and go. Okay. Last thing, maybe. Okay. So here's the other thing, which it just came to my mind. It's really important. So I have to say it before I stop this podcast, which is, I know for me and other people I've talked to about this, that sometimes the reason why we can't get out of the victim's mentality is because of two things. One, we keep looking back at the past, and we will often tend to exaggerate the negative experiences and potentially only remember the negative experiences related to the thing we're thinking about, the victim thing that we're thinking about. So let me touch on this quick, and then I'll get to the second thing, which is a lot of us have a hard time imagining a hopeful future, a future which is different than our past, right? And so it becomes hard to get out of this cycle because we're like, here's an example. Well, here's an example. I'll use one that is close to home for me. Well, I've never had a long-term relationship, so I'm never going to have a long-term relationship. Just think about that for a minute. Hearing it coming from someone else, you can see how it doesn't make any sense. If you met someone and they said, oh, well, I've never been married, so therefore I will never be married, you would easily be able to tell them, like, bro, that doesn't make any sense. Like, just because you've never been married doesn't mean that you're never going to find someone, that you're never going to find a life partner. Like, that makes no sense at all. Or, well, I've never had a good job, so therefore I'm never going to have a good job. Well, that makes no sense. Have you really tried to change your career? Have you made steps to try to get a better job? Or are you just reiterating this cycle of negativity and victimization? So hearing these things from other people, you can clearly see that what happens in someone's past, what has happened in your past, first of all, it doesn't exist in existential reality. The past is only in your brain and nowhere else. It doesn't exist. The past is just in your brain. And by and large, science has shown that our memory is extremely unreliable. And that even goes for you out there who think that you have a perfect memory. I promise you don't. I promise. Because no one does. So, and also, the human brain tends to focus on negative and adverse experiences as a part of our evolutionary survival mechanism. So you will tend to, I'm going to say de-exaggerate. Is that a word? I don't think so. What is the word? De-exaggerate. Okay, look, it's really late and I've been up since 5, so I'm just gonna leave it at that. We tend to de-emphasize. Okay, we tend to de-emphasize positive experiences in our past, and we tend to over-exaggerate negative and adverse experiences because that is a mechanism in our brain that helps us to avoid potentially negative outcomes in the future. Which is great for survival when you're a little human on the African savannah 50 million years ago or whatever it is. But it's not so great now when, let's say you're looking for a potential life partner, but all you can do and think about is all of the horrible, negative experiences and people that you've dated without thinking about all the positive experiences that you had as well, because your brain is de-emphasizing the positive experiences. And so then you're running on this negative loop, this negative victimization loop, or you're thinking of all of the money you've lost, or the times, or, the time that you didn't get the promotion, or the time you tried to go to become a lawyer and you couldn't pass the bar exam, and so you quit that endeavor forever because you're stupid and because victim. So realize that you might want to take a step back, and when you're in your victim mentality shit, think to yourself, wait a minute, stop. Is that really true? Is that really true? You have to really tell yourself that and scream it at yourself if you have to. Is that really true? For example, I tend to get, like I've been saying, I tend to get into this nobody likes me story, which comes from my childhood. Okay. Recently, when I started to go down the rabbit hole, I've caught myself and thought, wait a minute. Is that really true? Really? Nobody likes you? Really? Is that really true? And when I look at it like that, lo and behold, I catch my own subconscious mind's bullshit. And it can be a very eye-opening experience. And then I have to think, well, no, that's not true. It's definitely not true. I have broken up with people. People have broken up with me. I've had positive experiences in the dating world. I've had negative experiences in the dating world. It's not like I just, was an angel and all these men just victimized me and just didn't like me. That's so far from the truth. But the subconscious mind can get into these honestly, like fantasy stories, almost like a fantasy, like a negative nightmare fantasy world that is not aligned with what actually happened in your past in reality. And you know what? Even if the victim mentality that whatever victim story you're telling yourself, even if it is true, like let's say, for example, or not that it's true, but that you believe it's true, because, okay, we can get into that. I'm not going to. But let's say that you have never made above $100,000 a year. Okay. Let's say you've never made above $100,000 a year. Okay. That is a fact. We could agree that is a fact. Okay. But the victim mentality story would probably say something along the lines to yourself. The subconscious brain would start saying something like, well, I could never make 6 figures because I'm stupid. Okay. Now, this is where we play ball. Because this is where you can say to yourself, wait a minute, is that really true? And even if you believe that you're stupid, even that, you could unpack that, because science has shown there's many different types of intelligence. There's not just one type of intelligence. Let's say you got an F on every grade you've ever gotten in your life. Okay, that's just one type of intelligence. That's like academic intelligence. There's also emotional intelligence. There's also, I hope I'm saying this right, but like tactile and mechanical intelligence, which means maybe you're mechanically inclined. Maybe you are physically very in touch with your physicality. So that would include athletes and people who are good at sports. There's also artistic intelligence, creative intelligence. So that means any kind of art that you might be able to do, whether that's painting or sculpture or singing or music or gardening, landscaping. There's so many different types of intelligence. There's relational intelligence, people who are great with people. So if you're saying, oh, I've never made over $100,000 because I'm stupid, well, do you really know that? You probably don't, because maybe nobody ever told you what you're actually smart in. Maybe you need to go explore that. Okay, I'm going to leave this alone for now because it's now running on to 1 hour. Please go to millionairementormethod.com. We have an amazing community there for free. You can join for free. I'm writing the newsletter, and you can look me up under Krystal Kali or at my personal website, themostfamouswomanintheworld.com. And until then, remember, each one teach one.
The information provided in this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only and should not be construed as financial advice, investment advice, or medical advice. The host is not a financial advisor nor a medical doctor or licensed therapist. Any financial or medical decisions made based on the information in this podcast are made at the listener's own risk. It is recommended that listeners consult with licensed professionals such as CPAs, financial advisors, and licensed physicians before making any investment or medical decisions. The host and creators of this podcast accept no responsibility or liability for any loss or damages incurred as a result of the information provided in this podcast.